are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I am sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all the episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show, and other shows of friends, including Jen, the Arcane Observer, who has her own channel, and is the co-host of this show on the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com, and go from there. So this is going to be a slightly longer show than usual. It's going to be basically a show I will use in the future as needed for when I'm not able to record. So I don't know when this is going to come out. But that is okay. It's still always fun to do these kinds of shows. And let me get to these true stories here. Thank you all for listening, however you do so. And yeah, here's the first of these stories for tonight. Excuse me, this one says, yesterday, on the 20th of, May, there we go, 2026, I visited the Tower of London. While there, we viewed the crown jewels in the Waterloo building in barracks. When looking at the first crown that meets you as you enter the exhibition, I turned and was faced by a big man with a large mustache. I even ducked back as I thought I was about to walk into him. As I ducked back, I noticed that there was, in fact, no one directly in front of me. Other people were at least 4 feet away from me. I wasn't scared. I didn't feel odd at all. But today, the encounter is still on my mind. Did I see a ghost? He looked in his 40s or 50s, and a little scruffy, although not unkempt. No one around looked like the person I saw. And that's where that one ends. That is fascinating. Anyone that's sort of watched any paranormal sort of true stories kind of shows or haunted places kind of shows, a lot of times the Tower of London will appear there, especially if it's focused on that part of the world. And so that doesn't surprise me in a way that there would be that apparition there. And I had a similar experience with someone just being there and then gone years ago. Not anywhere like the Tower of London, but or anywhere near as historically important in a way, but just in my own apartment complex laundry room. As I've shared this before, but I always share for new listeners just in case. I decided, usually when I do laundry, especially if that really doesn't matter when, but usually when I do laundry, I go and put the things in the machines and then I go back home because it's like a one block walk away. But for whatever reason, this time I decided to stay there, and it was at night, and so I put the clothes in the washer, and I sat down and I had my phone at the time had the option to play radio on it, and so I was listening to that, but I could still hear the washer and everything, and the sounds of the room. And at one point, I heard the buzzer for the washer go off. And I had my eyes closed and covered at the time, so I uncovered them. And as I did that, and I was getting ready to stand up, I saw right in front of me, basically, just dress shoes and dress pants. And by the time I stood up all the way, that was gone. There was no one there. And so I don't know who it was. There was no sound. There's only one way in and out of that room as far as a way that wasn't completely locked, and even then you had to have a key to get in there, or a key card. So, and then it was just gone. And so I know that experience of being surprised by seeing something as you're sort of moving that seems really close and all of a sudden it's not there anymore. I think that that may be a. I feel like I've found other similar accounts before of that kind of experience. It may be a similar, common, relatively common type of experience that people have. Next one here says, for reference, my cousin L, 17-year-old male, and I, 16-year-old male, were in a tractor that my great uncle had modified with a back-to-back style buddy seat. We were out at Field 4 at about 2300 hours on our fourth pass with the disc harrow, heading in a general southeast direction, and just about finished with the field. We stopped after L heard a thump or a crack sound from behind. Fearing we chipped the brand new disc harrow, we both hopped out to take a look. That's when we saw it. An older fellow, 60 to 75 years old, male, wearing a dirty, torn up pair of jean blue overalls and what was left of a singed red long sleeve flannel, who stumbled out from the tree line about 20 to 30 yards left of the left side of the tractor, illuminated by the moonlight. He was covered in several deep cuts, had black decayed-like eyes, and his neck was cut almost all the way through, almost as if he was run over by a disc harrow. I saw him first before grabbing L's shoulder. He was knelt next to the disc harrow, checking for damage without taking my eye off the older gentleman. He stopped about 5 yards from us and said, in a southern drawl, "You boys ought to call it a night before it gets too dark. You look too tired to be out in this here field." I'm not wanting to do a southern drawl, by the way. Not so easily anyway. To which I responded, "Yes, sir. You have a good night now." The man walked away with a breathy laugh like grandpas do, except it sounded like air was escaping through the gash in the side of his neck. And that's where that one ends. Now, that may seem like something from a movie. However, in some cases, apparitions do show up with basically presenting the wounds, not to get too graphic or gory, but the wounds of basically how they died. And the fact that there was a bump, that the tractor sort of seemed to maybe hit something, or at least there was a sound of it doing that, even though nothing was found apparently. And then they saw this figure who seemed to have possibly been hit by a tractor before he passed, and then before he showed up as some kind of apparition. It all fits together really well. And again, sometimes these things, these experiences do happen where the experience is very similar. The situation is very similar to something that earlier in time went totally wrong and led to the passing of the person that is appearing somehow to the current people in the area. So that is something straight out of horror, but a lot of horror, I think, is in one way or another, it mimics or copies, at least to some degree, and then probably usually exaggerates real experiences, even if it's just someone that heard a report of an experience like this, and then sort of put it in fiction because it sounded good, and then made it a lot scarier, a lot more gory or whatever. So that's a fascinating one to me. Just the connections between possible past and present, between the two people that were there that witnessed this together, and then this apparition. So moving on to the next one here, and let's see here. This one says, "We used to live in a house that was around 80 years old. Every now and then, I would hear knocking sounds or footsteps, but nothing too unusual. One morning, I woke up at around 10 a.m. I stayed in bed for another 10 to 20 minutes before finally getting up and opening my bedroom door. Before I did, I loudly called out, "Good morning." Before anyone answered, I heard my father talking. Oops, let me see here. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. I heard my father and his wife walking around upstairs. There we go. I could hear them laughing and hear my father talking. A few seconds later, my father shouted, "Good morning," back down to me. After that, I went into my grandmother's room. This might be important to mention. My grandmother had suffered a brain hemorrhage years earlier and could barely walk. She couldn't take any stairs anymore, so she for sure wasn't upstairs under those circumstances. I asked her if she needed anything because I was planning to go shopping. She looked at me and said that my father and his wife had left for the city over an hour ago to go shopping and that I should call them if I needed anything. Confused, I picked up my phone and called my father. They weren't home. So who or what had wished me good morning? About 30 minutes later, they came back home. I asked both my father and his wife if either of them had shouted good morning to me earlier, but they both told me they had already left the house around 9 a.m. So what exactly was it that answered me that morning? And that's where that one ends. And there's always two things that seem more plausible than other things, maybe, to me when it comes to these experiences. A lot of the times, people's first reactions, and I'm guessing it's from research or from hearing about these, is the idea of mimics, of other entities somehow copying the voice and then sometimes even the appearance of people that the experiencer knows. And then doing things that seem similar to what the people would normally do. I think that does happen. It seems though like when that happens, usually there's more of a, it's more of a playful or even negative experience where they're trying to frighten people. But then I think the other possibility could be time anomalies and or residual energy of some kind, where if this person did this whenever they woke up, sort of called out good morning to the household, and they would normally get a reply anyway, it could have been some kind of overlap in time where the father did say good morning, and it really was him, just not at that point in the same point in time as the experience that happened. So if that makes any sense, basically saying hello, saying good morning, and for them it was a different time than it was for the person having the experience. So those are the sort of the usual things I think of. I'm not saying that I know for sure that's what they are, but based on similar accounts that I've found for the show before, and heard of off the show as well from people I've talked to, it seems like those are good. There's a good chance those are the things that may be happening there. So moving on to the next one here. This one says, once I scroll down a little bit, okay. A few weeks ago, I was sitting on my couch. I looked over at a corner next to my garage. I saw a very tall and lanky shadow man. He was all black, and I couldn't make out any limbs. The thing I could see was his face. He had two white eyes and a smile I can only describe as a Cheshire grin, as in it's too large, as far as I'm aware of that type of grin. It wasn't out of the corner of my eye. We made eye contact. He didn't move, just stared at me until I blinked, and he was gone. In the moment, I wasn't afraid, but every time I think back to the encounter, I get the chills. I told my mother about the encounter. Before I can mention the smile, she asked if it was like the Cheshire Cat. This is from, again, I believe, Alice in Wonderland. This cat-like figure with a smile that was too big for its face. And so it goes back to the post here. A few months before my sister, so basically I just want to repeat that sentence. I told my mother about the encounter. Oops, that was 2 sentences ago. Anyway, before I could mention the smile, she asked if it was like the Cheshire Cat. So, again, the implication here is the mom has seen this. A few months before, my sister, who was a medium, saw a creature who she described the same way to my mother. This creature chased her to our property line before stopping and just staring. I was never told what she saw, only that she was chased. When my mom asked her about it, she said a few days ago she saw him in the house. He no longer shows as hostile. She sees a color-like aura around them. But he has no color where there was originally red. Huh. I guess there must have been red in the figure when their sister saw them. Anyway, I'm not asking for you to believe me. I just want to know if anyone has been in a similar situation, and if he's safe, or if we need to get rid of it. And that's where that one ends. As I always like to say, I would go with any feelings that you get from an apparition, entity, whatever you want to call them. If they give off a negative feeling, then I would be careful with that. I'm not in any position to tell you how to do that, how to get rid of them, how to chase them out, because everything I've heard about, some things work sometimes, and then sometimes they don't. But I find it fascinating that the figure appeared different when it was hostile than it did when it wasn't. I'm wondering if that means it was the same figure, or something different, or if there was some kind of misunderstanding, and that's why it became less hostile. If there's some history with the land, if it was attached to the land somehow, and at first didn't know or wasn't sure why the family was there, and then finally got used to them. There's a lot of possibilities there, and so I don't know what was going on there, but I'm glad that it's not hostile now so far. The grin is fascinating. I've heard of that kind of grin before in other sightings. Not always on a shadow figure, but sometimes. Again, shadow figures, sometimes they appear to have a grin and or eyes, or at least lights that would be where the eyes are. And sometimes they don't have any of those features. It's one of the reasons why there's these things that we give labels, and it works in a basic way, but then when you get further down into details of each event, they don't all appear to be the same. And in this case, it may have changed. So I wonder what causes those changes in these figures that people see. If it's again the intention of the figure of the entity or consciousness that changes that. If it's the connection between the mind of the entity and the person involved, again, that idea of co-creation, the idea of telepathic sort of contact, where the entity wants to present a certain way to someone, so it's not just that the person is seeing this figure with their own eyes; they're seeing them with their mind, either on top of what they see with their eyes or instead of what they see with their eyes. So all kinds of variables here, as usual. Moving on to the next one here. Let's see here. Okay. This one says, I just wanted to ask if anyone knows how to identify mimics or skinwalkers. I need some help because I think I had a close call meetup with one of these creatures. I was driving my car in the middle of the night. I spotted a guy on the side of the road. I wanted to stop, but something about him was weird. He had weird clothing and was standing still, looking in the opposite direction that I was coming from. I didn't think much of it until I was heading back on the same road about an hour later. He was still there, in the same position. He hadn't moved a centimeter. When I approached with my car, he started to wave his hand in a very weird and unnatural way, up and down, fast but stiff. His face was weird. He didn't have eyes or a mouth, and had some weird bag beside his leg. I drove by again after 40 minutes, and he was still there. So I'm guessing they have to go up and down this road for some reason. I never saw him again, but he was close to the place where one guy disappeared and was found dead after some time in the middle of the field. And for everybody, the disappearance was weird because he went to the field in the middle of winter at night. Anyway, if anyone can help me identify it, I would be happy. That's where that one ends. I don't know what they saw. It is odd. I'm wondering what time of year these sightings took place as well. If it was winter or summer, because if it was winter, then that would be even more of a sort of red flag. You would think, you would hope, there's not anyone that has to be out in any kind of extreme cold or hot weather on the side of the road for, sounds like, hour and 40 minutes. But it's really tricky here. I don't know if there's a connection to, because we are between the man that's apparently went to the field and died there, apparently, and this apparition, or if there's not. It's always, I understand why maybe the connections are being made by people in the area, weird thing, and then you have this other weird thing. But I don't know if I don't know if there's really a way to prove or to verify that these things are connected. So as to what this figure was, I'm wondering. I guess the reason why they're asking about a mimic is maybe they think this guy looked like, or this figure looked like this guy that had gone to that field. Skinwalkers are a very regional thing overall, but the term gets used for sort of shape-shifting, magic-wielding people with sort of a more negative attitude, negative disposition, you could say. So I don't know, again, if that's accurate either. I don't know what this person saw. I don't think it doesn't really say what region this happened in either. So for all I know, it could be in a region where skinwalkers are said to be around. But yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that. A lot of both sort of paranormal strangeness there and just everyday terrible situation that happened there with this man that went to that field and somehow died out there. Moving on to the next one here. This one is short. This one says, a few years ago, I took a trip to my grandma's downstairs bathroom, and as I sat down, a red piece of Lego fell into the toilet bowl. Okay. So they weren't in it, I'm guessing, because they wouldn't know otherwise. Anyway, sorry. I just realized that sounded weird. But anyway, I'd not been around Lego for years at this point, and hadn't been around anyone else who had. Of course, for anyone that somehow hasn't heard of these are these blocks, building blocks, tiny, sharp edges sometimes, and not fun to step on. Anyway, directly above the toilet was a lampshade, the old-fashioned pleated kind, which slanted down at an angle. Still blows my mind to this day how it was even possible. How it happened is beyond me. Any ideas? And that's where that one ends. Unless it was somehow stuck in the lampshade for a long time, but then how would it get dislodged? I don't know about that. It just reminds me of objects that vanish or appear, and sometimes they do. When they appear, they fall from empty space or from near objects to make you think it seems like that they're falling from an object, even though that doesn't always make sense. Uh, so I'm not sure where that came from. I'm guessing maybe someone in the household that at one point did play with those building blocks, those Lego, and then maybe lost one at one point, and then it reappeared years later. And again, it doesn't make sense in a logical sort of everyday frame of mind, but when compared to other objects that appear and vanish, or vanish and appear, it's not too uncommon for just random things to do that. Moving on to the next one here. Let's see here. This one says, 20 years ago, on vacation, I saw this guy in line at a coffee place. We both smiled and started talking about how we haven't seen each other in forever, and how is everything going. We sat at a table and talked for 10 minutes. We were laughing and talking about things. Then he stopped. I got this creepy feeling. He said, "Who are you?" I said my name, and then, then it also hits me. I don't know him. We never met before. We both walked away without another word. 5 years ago, my sister, who lives in a different state, had a wedding. She met a guy and got married quickly. It is that same guy. And I guess they mean from the coffee shop there. So that's where that one ends. So I don't know how to explain that, except maybe some kind of weird time anomaly with memory. I'm not sure. Alternate parallel universe kind of thing. Again, I don't know. It's like their minds, their consciousness was sort of unstuck in time in a weird way for that brief time they were at this coffee place. And so for that brief time, they did know each other because they would later know each other. And then the anomaly passed and they realized they didn't know each other. And it's because at that time, as of yet, they didn't, and they would have no reason to. So that's all I can think on that. It still is quite the experience. I've never heard of anything exactly like that before. So I don't know what to make of that. And yeah, I've heard of, again, it gives me a sort of I don't know, it's either something to do with time and or a multiverse kind of thing. Really, I lean more towards time. And memory being just different. Maybe it isn't a multiverse thing. I don't know. But yeah, that's quite the experience. I've never heard of one quite like that before. But I think we're going to stop there for this episode. And like I said, I knew that this would be longer, but not super long. Thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.